Good evening and welcome to tonight's Planning Committee. In absence of the Chair and the Vice Chairman of the committee, can I please call for nominations for a Chairman?
I'd nominate Anne Parry.
And a seconder?
I'll second that.
Are there any more nominations? Are we all in agreement? It is now resolved that Councillor Parry will be the Chairman of this committee.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Planning Committee. My name is Councillor Anne Parry, and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. Before we start, I'd just like to highlight some housekeeping rules. There is no fire alarm planned, so if it does, please make your way to the exits and we meet all together in the car park over the road. Can I remind you, please, to check that your mobile phones are switched off or in silent mode, so there is no disruption of the meeting. This is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. So only those registered to speak are permitted to do so. I will call those at the appropriate time and give further instructions then. I'd like to remind you that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live. I will now introduce the top table to you. My far right, Olivia Quinn, Democratic Services, our legal officer, Amy Shipley. To my left, Alice Cosnett, Planning Manager, and our planning officers are Alison Willers, Stuart McIver, and Sian Mayer. Alice, I understand you may have a statement you wish to make.
I do. Thank you, Chairman. My role is to provide impartial advice and to assist members in their decision-taking.
Thank you. We now move on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence, please. Olivia.
Chair, we've got apologies from Councillor Adam, Councillor Hencher-Seraphin, Councillor Keithley, who Councillor Ostrander is substituting for, Councillor Eden, who Councillor Harding is substituting for, and Councillor Pemberton, who Councillor Littlewood is substituting for.
Thank you. Now I move on to item number 2, for disclosures of interest. Do any members have any disclosures of interest? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. I have paid personal visits, site visits to Southam and Prize Martin. The items, applications are items 5 and 6. Whilst at Prize Marston, I also had a conversation with a resident.
Sorry, Councillor Pageant.
Yes, thank you. I am ward member for Southam South, so we'll be speaking as ward member on item 5. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. No other Oh, sorry, Councillor Stranger.
Thank you. I'm just declaring an interest in item 5, the land between Daventry Road and Welsh Road East, as I'm related to the ward councillor who will be speaking on this item. However, I'm not predetermined on the matter. I have no financial or other interests, and so I will be taking part in the debate and the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, moving on to the minutes. Can we first, are we all in agreement for the meeting held on the 7th of February, the first one we take? All happy in terms of accuracy? Are we happy to sign? And in respect of the 21st of February, are we happy that these be signed? Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to the first application this evening, as the one highlighted on the agenda, the application is not being heard this evening. So the first application we go to is application number 23/01576/full, land between Daventry Road and Welsh Road East, Southam. And the case officer is Alison Villiers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So the application site is located on the eastern edge of Southam, on the south side of the main Daventry Road. The location is shown by the black dot. This planning application seeks permission for the erection of a use class EA convenience store extending to 420 square metres, 24 car parking spaces to include 2 accessible bays and 2 electric vehicle charging points, with deliveries and service areas to the rear of the unit, with bin and plant areas within an acoustic fenced enclosure. The application site is not near any conservation areas or any listed buildings, and there are no public rights of way nearby. So here is a recent aerial view of the site showing the application site outlined in red here. The site, which is 0.26 hectares, is relatively flat, with open countryside to the north, public open space and a suds basin to the east, and recently built housing to the south and the west. All this housing here. So the application site here, as shown here, is inside the built-up area boundary, which is the black line, and within the core strategy allocation SU03, south of Daventry Road. This allocation has been in place since 2016 when the core strategy was adopted. The allocation requires a general store of approximately 280 square metres net, which is what this proposal is. So a similar convenience store was given permission in 2016. This is the approved parameters plan from the outline. The location for the store is shown in the same location coloured purple, which is just here. The convenience store that is currently proposed has a smaller gross floor space than that already granted in 2016. 420 square metres as opposed to 500 square metres. So, to illustrate the location, the red star, which is the application site, is approximately 0.7 miles from the High Street in Southam, this kind of area here, and 2.1 miles from the edge of Knapton on the Hill. It's Knapton on the Hill over here. A retail assessment was carried out as part of the 2016 outline application. The committee report indicated the scale of the proposal was consistent with the indicated use and that the retail store would enhance the sustainability of the development without prejudicing the main retail offer in Southam itself. This is the layout plan of the current proposals, showing the food store in blue, a relocated site entrance here, 24 parking spaces, a bin and plant area enclosed by acoustic fencing at the back, additional trees around the site and breaking up the parking spaces, a landscape buffer on the western edge here, and additional planting parallel to the retained footway. This is the retained footway along here that runs adjacent to the main road, which is the main road. So the gross internal floor area of the development would be 420 square metres, and the maximum net retail floor area would be 280 square metres. Both of these floor areas would be secured by condition. So these are the proposed elevations. The external measurement of the building is approximately 19 by 24 metres. The roof has a sloping profile being approximately 6 metres at the front, decreasing to 4 metres at the rear. The construction materials are to include red facing brick with brown grey brick contrast panels and a grey metallic roof system. So these are a few contextual photographs, site photographs. So this view is a recent view looking across the site to the west. So this is Spitfire Road here. This is the retained footpath with Daventry, the main Daventry Road off to my right-hand side. And this is Scimitar Way down here. So the convenience store would be located towards this end of the site, the far end of the site. It will back onto the side of these two properties, neither of which have side-facing windows, but there will be a landscape buffer in between and a 2.2 metre high acoustic fence. So this is a picture of the bungalows on Scimitar Drive. So the convenience store will be in this sort of location here. And these are the neighbouring properties on Spitfire Road. Chairman, that's the end of the presentation. There are two updates relating to the proposed opening hours and one regarding the number of signatures on the petition. Both are on the update sheet. Chairman, the recommendation is the application be granted for the reasons detailed in the report, subject to the conditions and the notes and detailed wording and numbering which is delegated to officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. We now move on to our first speaker this evening. May I ask Debbie Currow, Southam Town Clerk, to come forward. And you will have 3 minutes to make your presentation. If you press the button on the right to, that's it. I think you've probably done this before. Would you like, that's all right. Would you like a 30-second warning before you finish? Fine, thank you.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Hi, good evening. My name's Debbie Carroll. I'm the Town Clerk at Southam Town Council. I'd like to thank the Planning Committee for giving Southam Town Council the opportunity to speak on this application. As the committee will have seen from your officer's report, this application has generated considerable interest from the local community, both for and against the proposed development. Our District Councillor for Southam, Councillor Gillian Bagdham, will cover a number of technical planning points in her submission. These points are well made and supported by Southam Town Council. I therefore do not intend in repeating them here. The Flying Fields development forms part of the SOU3 land allocation in the existing district plan. The original outline application for this allocation clearly shows a convenience store located within the red line boundary of this proposed site. However, the outline boundary was for a considerably smaller store and the store allocation was at the eastern end of the application site away from the proposed existing houses. These remain two fundamental points of objection to the proposed scheme by the Town Council, namely that the proposed store is too big for the site and remains out of proportion as a convenience store. Therefore, the proposed store is not in keeping with the local area and not in line with the original outline application. The position of the proposed store is a significant detriment to the neighbouring properties and will result in a loss of privacy and an increase in noise nuisance, light pollution and increased traffic levels. The Town Council would also agree with Councillor Pagdham's argument that this development, should it be allowed, would have a significant detrimental impact on the town centre trade in Southam and is counter to both the Spirit of Southam Neighbourhood Plan and Stratford District Council's core strategy. We note that no retail assessment has been prepared for this application and we feel that this is remiss and would therefore question whether or not the Planning Committee actually have all the relevant information on which to make their decision. Flying Fields has continued a trend of land promotion and development around Southam that increasingly segregates residents from their town centre without adequate safe connectivity. We do not want to see the town continue to be segregated by inappropriate developments such as this. This development would bring the approved number of local supermarkets in Southam to 3 over the last 15 years, Tesco, Aldi and Co-op. On a pro rate basis, this is a higher level of out-of-town shopping provision than Coventry. During the same period, 2 purpose-built town centre supermarkets have closed. The town has lost its only butcher, its weekly market, and we've seen an influx of development in the town centre that is contrary to the designated conservation area, or without action from this planning authority to oversee sustainable development that supports the conservation status of Southam as a market town, and without any wider affirmation action from the District Council. This is not good enough, and the size of this proposed development is yet another nail in the coffin of the Southam Town Centre. The Town
30
Council would
seconds.
therefore ask this application be refused and the applicant resubmit with a scheme that is at least in line with the original outline application. Thank you.
Thank you. Very much well within your 3 minutes. If you would like to remain seated while I ask councillors if they have any questions they would like to pose. Councillors, any questions? No? That's fine. You may go. Thank you. I'd now like to call upon Derek Irvin on behalf of Flying Fields residents and Andy Fowler. Now then, you have 3 minutes between yourselves. Is one of you there to answer questions, or are you splitting the presentation?
Our intention is to do 90 seconds each.
Okay. Can I recommend when you've done your 90 seconds, then you turn your microphone off? And so yes, it is. Can I ask who is speaking first? And sorry, you're Derek. Fine. Whenever you're ready, please take it away.
Good evening. I speak on behalf of a group of 97 fellow Flying Fields residents who put their names to the objecting petition of October 23. I believe you've been given updated numbers for the petition to reflect the changes on page 49. For clarity, we canvassed 100 houses on the estate, 81 doors were opened, and of those, 65 people from 53 households put their names to the petition to object. That's 65% of responding households objecting. A further 32 names from other addresses within Flying Fields also reached out to us and added their names to the petition. The objections cited in the petition reference the relevant material planning policies, including impact to Southern High Street, the overall size being misaligned to SOU3, site access, safety and traffic concerns. This data is far more up-to-date and relevant than the survey submitted by the applicant, who distributed leaflets to 530 properties in late 22. Many of the properties near the site were not built or occupied at that time, and the leaflet showed the building and access to the opposite end of the site and failed to show houses in any of the artwork. Only 23 responses, or 4%, were received, including 10 traffic and safety concerns. If you read the comments of supporting residents on the portal, you will quickly realise that they just want a shop, a convenience store. We were all expecting a shop at the site, but the primary issue here is the size of the proposal. A more modest-sized shop would be acceptable to the vast majority of both supporters and objectors and would resolve the debate over the non-compliance to policy to protect the town centre. So that's the town council, the ward member, neighbouring ward member, 65% of households in Flying Fields, and 11 businesses on the high street all objecting. Thank you.
Please go.
Thank you for the opportunity to present. The traffic assessment found in the transport appendix demonstrates that this application goes well beyond the scale and size of a small convenience store. It predicts that the supermarket over the course of a day will generate 803 individual entries and exits at this one point coming off a small residential road, Spitfire Road. Using the same entrance will be the large HGVs trying to navigate this tight entry. The latest swept path analysis still shows how tight the manoeuvres are and shows the HGVs well over to the other side of the road, even clipping an adjacent junction. Once you add in the human factor, then they will mount pavements to make the turn. This entry point is squeezed between 2 bus stops. We have already uploaded webcam pictures to the portal showing how buses regularly stop here for periods of 20 minutes at a time. This creates a steady flow of overtaking traffic using the opposite side of the road, seen here in slide 2, please, the bus. As residents, we know this is a difficult area to navigate, especially with another junction metres away. 803 individual entries and exits at this point will have a profound effect on safety. The assumption that some of these new trips would be by residents passing by here anyway is misleading. A resident who drives onto the estate to then stop, turn into a supermarket across traffic, to then enter back in is very different to the person who travels straight past there. If Southern needs a third supermarket, it should be placed on an industrial zone like Tesco's and Aldi, not next to people's doorsteps and using a small residential road to service it. It is not sensible and it's certainly not safe. The last slide's only just come up now. That's Spitfire Road demonstrating overtaking traffic on a stationary bus with the entry and exit point from the supermarket, with the large HGVs, as well as all the extra entries and exits will have to come out as in very close proximity to the other traffic.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions for the two gentlemen? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a question for Mr. Irving, I think. I think you said the number of responses was of the order of 100 or slightly over 100?
Yeah, 97 I've recorded, but I think Alison has counted slightly more generously to 100.
Okay. My question is based upon the information that we've been given, that there are 525 houses on this on the flying fields.
Yep.
And on an assumption, and I'm quite happy to give way on this assumption, but my assumption from my experience is that the average number of residents per household is 2.4 or thereabouts. On that basis, I make it that there's something of the order of 1,200 people who live on this this development, flying fields. Is that anywhere near the truth, do you think?
I think those factors are fine. I think that there will be less typically than 2.4 adults in a house. We didn't canvass any children. We just asked adults. And I think.
Can we have your microphone? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. If you would like to answer the question, because we're doing it on broadcast, we need to have your microphone on to hear.
Yeah.
That's not a problem.
Okay. So yes, I agree with what you said, Councillor. We collected a maximum of 2 names from each household and have only counted households, not double accounted for 2 adults. So the 65% is of households which responded with an objection. We didn't walk the entire estate. We walked 100 houses. We felt that was a good sample. And having 53 households from 81 that opened the door to us signing that petition is 65%, which we felt was a very strong sample representation. But we didn't walk all 500 houses, no.
I won't ask where those houses were. I'll just make the point that if you ask people who are going to be very close to the site, you may get one set of answers. If you ask people who live further into the development and are further away from the proposed site, you might get different answers. That's all
the addresses are in the petition, and the road names on which they are canvassed are declared. It was pretty split, but was centred along Spitfire Road, which is the central drive-through.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Any other questions from members? Councillor Stranger.
Hi, thank you for that information. At some point, I can't recall who, said that there is a discrepancy in terms of size, that the second application is larger in size than the first original application, and yet the officer said the opposite, that it's smaller in size. Can you offer a comment on that apparent discrepancy?
I made a comment that the leaflet that had been circulated for comment in October or November 22, this leaflet shows the building at the opposite end of the development. It doesn't show its size. I didn't say it was smaller,
Okay.
but it's at the opposite end, and this shows the access being at that end also. So it doesn't convey the building being close to houses, and it doesn't convey the effect of having the access much further into Spitfire Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, members? Councillor Harvey.
Question for Mr. Fowler. You made the point that you didn't think that the impact of this development would be safe as far as road conditions were concerned. Can you offer any evidence of the degree in which there have been accidents, incidents in the existing vicinity of the proposed development?
So I don't have any specific data on road traffic accidents that happen there. I know from my own background that 2/3 of RTAs happen within a 30-mile-an-hour zone, which is where this is. I just think that being a resident driving past this area, I know with stationary buses there and overtaking traffic, it's very difficult to navigate this area. With 800 entries in and out, it seems logical that this will have a major effect on there. There is absolutely no traffic modelling in the application showing what stationary vehicles or stationary buses have at this point, with 2 bus stops either side, 800 entries in and out, HGVs trying to manoeuvre this corner, going on to the opposite side of the road when you can see other traffic already on the other side of the road anyway. So it just seems to me a recipe for disaster, really.
Thank you, Councillor. I have just one question I'd like to ask. Obviously, when the original outline planning application was put forward in 2015 for the 500 odd houses, it also included details of outline planning for a convenience store, which is actually the planning application that has come forward is less than that. Can I ask, were you aware of there being this size of convenience store when you agreed to purchase your homes in Flying Fields?
We discussed this point previously. We were both aware of a convenience store. This is not a convenience store. This is a mini supermarket. And I don't know what a 400 or 500 square metre building looks like. I take the words convenience store and take those as they are said to me. Obviously, when you then go and plot out that size of building, this is the size that it is.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions. Oh, sorry, Councillor Harding. Beg your pardon.
Thank you. Interested in the figure of 803 extra movements a day. Yes. What are you counting as a day? Is that the opening hours of the shop or 24 hours?
So in the objection by highways, the applicant had to then submit an answer to that in terms of volume of traffic coming off Daventry Road versus internal traffic. And they've got this from the TRIX database, which all the major councils are signed up to. It's a huge database of traffic, but essentially it shows you put in the details of the location, you put in the size of the building, it's got a factor scale, and it does it, I mean, it's from about 6 a.m. to around about 11. I mean, obviously in the later hours, there's not much traffic there, so it's in the bulk of the day, but we've got the data here. We weren't actually allowed to submit it as a slide because it had text on, but it's in the transport assessment, but it's tucked in at the appendix. The applicant has only mentioned 2 hours worth of data. It doesn't mention 803 individual entries and exits off this single point.
I think, thank you very much. I think we can pick that up in questions to officers, Councillor Harding. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're free to leave at the moment. I'd now like to call upon the applicant agent, Ed Sutton, who's the applicant, and Ian Pepple, Head of Store Operations, Heart of England Cooperative. Gentlemen, good evening. You have 6 minutes between yourselves. Oh, we have another. Can we just?
Can I just clarify? I thought if we have technical questions, somebody who's not speaking could be there to answer those questions.
I'm really sorry, sir, but unfortunately, only people who are registered to speak can speak.
That's absolutely
all right.
Fine. Yeah.
So if we can just leave
not to speak, to answer questions.
Yeah, that's the same case.
All right.
Thank
lovely.
you.
No, that's not a problem.
How are you planning to divide your presentation?
We're looking to present 3 minutes each.
Fine.
Myself as a developer and Ian on behalf of Heart of England.
That's fine. Would you like a 30-second warning as you come to 3 minutes, or?
Yeah, I think it might be helpful.
Fine.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, certainly thank you for the opportunity to be able to present our application to yourselves tonight. I'm Ed Sutton, Managing Director of LSP Developments. We're a specialist local centre, and I'll stress convenience store developer. We don't do supermarkets, with over 20 years of experience delivering such schemes, predominantly in new communities across the UK. We treat all projects as partnerships, and we believe we listen. The subject scheme, which is for 420 square metre convenience store, is smaller than the original outline, which was for 500 square metres, because actually, because of Sunday trading laws, convenience stores have to be a certain size, and that's what we've adhered to. And the whole purpose of this is to provide an amenity for the local residents of Flying Fields. LSP secured the opportunity via tender, working in partnership with Heart of England Co-op, who are the local co-op, to whom we delivered 2 years ago the Lair Heathcote Local Centre in Warwick, which has been very well received by local residents. We undertook a residents' consultation in December 2022, and the plan that we put forward then actually isn't dissimilar to that of the outline. The store is in the same position. The highway position changed because of the positioning of the bus stops, so we took advice on that. What we'd like to think we've done, following the consultation, we got people in support, we got people in objection, and what we took on ourselves is to address some of the key concerns, such as removing external seating, increasing the landscaping buffer between the unit and the adjacent residential, and providing appropriate acoustic fencing to the bin store and external plant area. The service yard is self-contained with deliveries regulated. These aren't HGV trucks, they're 12-metre fixed rigid trucks that come into the store. That is commonplace with convenience stores. They're not very regular, unlike all the delivery vehicles we see day-to-day flying around our communities. The store is a much-needed asset for local residents, and what we've made sure is that we've reduced the parking to 20 bays to take on board such things as pedestrian access, cycle access and bus access. It's a sustainable development with PV panels, with EV charging, and during construction there'll be a construction management plan to reduce any disturbance on local community. These are trying times for us all, and I think what is really important is we've put forward a much-needed sustainable development for the good of those served and employed.
Can you just complete your sentence?
Not to mention the economy itself.
Thank you very much. 3 minutes. Right. Over to yourself. Thank you. 3 minutes. Would you like a 30-second warning as well?
Please.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to let us speak to you today. My name's Ian Pepper. I'm the Head of Store Operations at Heart of England Co-op. For background, we're one of the UK's leading regional cooperative societies, known as Heart of England Co-op, with origins in Coventry since 1832. We're still locally based, with our head office based in Coventry on Foles Hill Road. We operate 37 local convenience stores across the trading area of Coventry, Warwickshire and South Leicestershire, also having a funeral division and a coffee franchise. Our values that we run our business on are first for customers, great place to work, driving a sustainable agenda, and being at the heart of the communities that we serve. We have created what we term as Your Community Store as a basis of our store operations. Our stores sell a selection of fresh food, meat, dairy and flowers, groceries, beers, wines and spirits, tobacco, food to go, sandwiches, soft drinks, hot food, and fresh coffees, with additional services as examples of parcel collection amenities, cash machines, national lottery and bill payment services. Our offer allows us to fulfil multiple customer missions, be it food to go, meal for tonight, or predominantly top-up shops, and as a service provider. We already have our site in Southam Town Centre, which is trading strongly on its current footprint, and recognise that Southam is a high-demand, busy area, and the proposed store would have limited impact on the current store. The site in question would create around 12 new job opportunities for local residents. In addition, we also offer our society membership programme, which entitles members once signed up to make savings on a range of products and accrue additional discounts for them to use at a later time. We partner with a corporate charity every year, currently Macmillan Cancer, and support local good causes through our Helping Hearts scheme, which benefits local schools, In Bloom initiatives, local groups and social clubs as examples. And we also have food bank collections in the majority of our stores. We continually reinvest in our stores to ensure our proposition remains relevant to the communities in which we serve and deliver a pleasant customer experience. Today's environmental concerns are strong on our mind, and we seek to operate in an environmentally friendly manner with recent investment in energy-efficient refrigeration and solar panels, which would have on this site as we strive towards reducing our carbon footprint. The site would allow local residents to have more flexibility and choice in where they shop and how they travel to their local store. Our aim within Your Community Store is to be your local store, serving and supporting local communities and providing job opportunities for local people.
30 seconds.
Well timed. Thank you. Members, do we have any questions? Councillor Harvey.
Question to either of you. Is there an industry accepted definition of the distinction between a mini superstore and a convenience store?
LSP deliver a range of convenience stores for all the major operators, and to comply with Sunday trading rules, a convenience store can only have a net sales area of 280 square metres, which has been referred to in the past in a lot of the documentation, and all convenience stores have to comply with that. Once you go above that, then it becomes a different proposition. And all the rest of the space within the store is obviously the back of house, the storage areas, etc., to serve the store itself.
Can I just play that back? Are you then telling me that if a store is 280 square metres or less, it's a convenience store, and it cannot be a mini supermarket, and if it is over 280, it cannot be a convenience store, and it must be a mini supermarket? Is that correct?
I think whether there are definitions of mini supermarket, but in law for a convenience store to be able to trade in the way it does on a Sunday, its net sales area can't be in excess of 280 square metres. So it could be a bigger store and have a bigger back of house, but its net sales area can't exceed that, which is obviously relevant because it's there to serve the community that has been developed and not a wider community. And that's the point of the convenience store. It's a top-up shop for local residents.
Can I just hammer that home then? What you're telling me is that 280 square metres is a limit size, and that divides between Sunday trading hours and et cetera, but different people could call the same store, which is less than 280, they could equally call it a convenience store, or they could equally call it a mini supermarket. Neither would be wrong. Is that correct?
I think you're quite correct there, because I don't think there's a specific definition. We just have to work within the confines of the operators for them to be able to trade in accordance with the rules regulating weekend and Sunday hours.
Thank you. Any other further questions? Councillor Harding.
Thank you. Do you have sort of an industry standard for how many shoppers you need every day to make it viable? And where do you anticipate most of your trade coming from? Is it from the local community or from passing trade on the A425?
Yeah, I'll take the second question first. So we would anticipate the majority of custom coming from the housing estate. Clearly, it is a busy road that passes by. We would expect to see some drive-by trade coming, obviously from there, with the opportunities that we have and amenities that we deliver. An average store, we'd be looking at around about sort of 4,000 to 5,000 transactions a week, but they are not necessarily 4,000 to 5,000 different customers either. We see, obviously, as a convenience store, several repeat transactions from the same people during a week.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Harvey.
Can I push you on that? Do you do some sophisticated modelling when you decide where to put a store? In the sense of being able to answer that question more precisely, you can say, can you say 70% comes from local people and 30% is anticipated to come from passing traffic? Do you do modelling to that extent?
I think to assist there, that all the convenience operators run software called CACI, and the CACI survey basically dictates where the trade is likely to come from. For example, if there's a school on a development and the school's adjacent to a site, mum or dad might pop in to school to drop off little Jimmy or Jemima and then come and buy a pint of milk. But always, those CACI reports are based on the immediate community as opposed to looking at destination. It's not a destination store. That's where a bigger food store comes into play. You'll never do your weekly shop in a store like this. Generally speaking, this is people in the summer, they're having a barbecue. Oh, we haven't got any barbecue coal, or we need some ice cream. It's more of a daily purchase, a newspaper, a pint of milk, that sort of thing. It's not a supermarket.
Thank you very much. I've just got a couple of questions. Sorry, I didn't see your hand raised. Would you like to?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got a couple of questions, if I may. The first thing, we're talking about new jobs here. How many new jobs, that is full-time equivalents, have you calculated for this operation?
We would estimate a mix of full-time and part-time roles between 10 and 12.
Yeah, how many full-time equivalents, please?
It would be 5 to 6.
5 or 6, okay, thank you. And from an operational point of view, what would be the time slots for delivery?
So I believe that had been as part of the notes.
The planning officer has... Hello? Oh, there. And the planning officer within her conditions and notes has put forward delivery times which would be applicable to the store, and basically we've confirmed that they are acceptable to ourselves. I think the first delivery is from 7 in the morning. I can't remember when the evening one is off the top of my head. The reality of the situation is you get a range of deliveries. Things that sell on a weekly basis, you probably only get maybe 2 or 3 12-metre rigids coming in, and they're dealing with the things that will have a shelf life, things like tins of beans and things like that. Things like news, bread and milk will come in on small delivery. They tend to be there early in the morning, ready and available for when the shop opens. Often there'll be a drop-off point where literally the delivery van can drop in such that the newspapers are there ready for when the store is open.
Okay, thank you. I'll clarify the times with the officer then, if I may.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I add to that? Sorry. So we would be able to obviously work with the local parameters of deliveries. As mentioned, obviously 7 till 10, but it would be unusual for us to be receiving deliveries after certainly 6 p.m. as the latest.
Okay, well, we can get that clarified by the officers. I was just interested to know, you obviously highlighted you have a supermarket in Southam town centre where the customers do more of their main weekly shop. Can you just provide an indication of the square meterage of that and how that compares with the proposed convenience store?
Just an initial point, it's not a mini supermarket, it's a convenience store. The footprint of that store is smaller than what we're proposing here.
Thank you. And there was just another query, in fact, on the parking where you mentioned it was 20 spaces. Am I right in thinking it's 20 general spaces plus 2 EV charging spaces and 2 disabled, so it's 24 in total?
No, I think hopefully I mentioned, it's 20 visitor spaces and 4 staff spaces. So within the 20 visitor spaces are the 2 EV charging points and also the accessibility bays as well.
That's fine. Thank you very much for your comprehensive answers to our questions. I'd now like to call Councillor Padgham forward, the ward member. Good evening, Councillor Padgham, and welcome, and nice to see you.
Thank you.
From the other side of the table. You have 5 minutes as the ward member.
Could I get a 30-second warning, please? Thank you. Thank you. Whilst I support the principle of a local convenience store on site at Flying Fields Estate to serve the local community without conflicting with the town centre, the proposed convenience store does not appear to fit this criteria. local residents were expecting something along the lines of a corner shop from the description in the outline planning application, which I quote from now. The provision of a small local store is of a scale that is appropriate to a small shopping facility serving the proposed development and will not adversely impact the vitality and viability of Southam Town Centre. However, what we are considering today is on a far larger scale than that. It would seem to be a mini supermarket rather than a convenience store. It could be argued that the retail floor space of 280 square metres is unnecessarily large to serve the estate of 525 houses. For comparison, the cooperative store on Southam High Street has a retail floor space of 272 square metres and ostensibly serves the town population of 8,114. That's from the census 2021. If using this as a guiding principle, the supermarket proposed does not need to have such an overly large retail floor space and will detract footfall from the town centre and high street. Indeed, in the designs and aims statement, it is clear that the proposed supermarket is designed to compete with the town centre, and again, I quote, "In positioning the food store, two things were key: visibility from Daventry Road to attract passing trade." Section 4.10, Objective 10 of the Made Southam Neighbourhood Development Plan is to encourage a vibrant commercial centre, to conserve and encourage footfall in the town, especially at weekends, to improve the social and commercial viability of the high street. I would argue that this proposed mini supermarket is in conflict with this policy point. One final point on the size, I promise. The SOU .3 section of the core strategy quotes what is to be delivered is a general store of approximately 280 square metres net, land and building. I guess this is open to interpretation, as the scale of the proposed land and building is clearly larger than that. This application is for a store of 280 metres net retail space. The building in total is 420 metres squared, and the gross total land at 2,340 metres squared, so substantially larger, which suggests to me, if we follow the wording of SOU .3, it's actually non-compliant with the core strategy. Additionally, there is to be a large Aldi, also on the edge of town, which is likely to detract from the high street. So one could ask, why does Southam need another supermarket, which will already impact the already struggling high street? Just another thought on the safety concerns raised by residents. This scheme will result in a significant increase in car activity, as evidenced by the trip generator statistics. I feel these concerns are valid, as there will be more traffic, more pollution, more noise, and more visitors who do not reside on the estate entering the area to use the supermarket, and the site is adjacent to a children's play area. Taking all of this into consideration, in my opinion, this application should be refused, as it is non-compliant with Objective 410 of the Southam Neighbourhood Development Plan. Ideally, the applicant would resubmit an application for a smaller actual convenience store, preferably in line with the original outline plan, which would be more acceptable to the local residents and the sustainability needs of the local community. However, if the committee is minded to grant, I would like to specify a condition regarding the delivery hours. This is an estate full of hard-working families, and the proposed delivery hours of 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday would be extremely disruptive. I would propose a condition that delivery hours for all vehicles are changed to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sundays and bank holidays. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to hearing the debate.
Thank you, Councillor. If you'd like to remain seated, why I ask members if they have any questions they wish to raise. Members. Councillor Harvey.
One of your points was that there would be increased traffic, which would cause increased pollution. But you've got 525 houses on the other side of the argument saying we needn't get in our cars, we can walk to the shop, we can cycle to the shop. So isn't your argument trying to have it both ways? You're in other words, you're putting forward the cost, so to speak, but you're not putting forward the benefit, and you haven't weighed one against the other. Is that correct?
I would say possibly not, because the trip generator data did show the fact that there would be an additional potentially 800 trips per day. And as was raised by the resident, some of these would be people who already lived in the housing estate. But as they said, coming in and driving straight down Spitfire Road and going to your house is very different to pulling into the supermarket, potentially parking and coming back out again. It will generate more traffic. it's there, it's in the report, it's in the TRICS data. So by that rule of thumb, there will be more pollution.
I think you've missed my point, but I'll leave.
Any further questions? Councillor Wood.
Thank you. I noticed in your submission you were using the mini supermarket rather than the convenience store, but we've already established that the 280 square metres is a line that we can assume it's a convenience store. I wonder if you put it into scale. Have you put into scale and worked out what that floor area actually looks like compared to this room, for example?
I haven't compared it to this room. However, I do shop in Southam High Street Co-op regularly, and there's only an 8-metre difference. Southam Co-op, High Street Co-op is 272 square metres retail space. This will be 280 square metres retail space. So it's essentially a tiny bit bigger. So I have visualised what it might look like.
If I ask the officers, I don't know which one, to actually identify the size of this space, I would say these are 4-foot panels. And I think that we're talking about...
I think we can... I don't think we can speculate without any evidence.
Okay, we can do that. But
if we come back to the questions to the officers. Thank you. Any... Councillor Susan Stranger.
Thank you. Thank you for your information. I have 2 questions. First question, how long does it take to walk from Flying Fields Estate into Southam High Street?
I think it's 25 minutes.
Thank you. And also, within Southam, are there any other what might be termed local neighbourhood stores? So discounting the big cooperative, the convenience store on the high street, but are there any other neighbourhood stores in Southam that we might be able to compare in terms of size with this one?
You could look at Tesco, but I can't remember off the top of my head what the floor space is. It is substantially larger. Apart from that,
a supermarket. Are there any other smaller, what we might call local shops?
There's the one on the corner of, it's in the listed building. It's on the corner of Daventry Street as you go onto the high street. That used to be the chemist. Sorry, I don't know how many.
How big would you rate that if that is a local corner shop sort of thing? How big would you?
I think we have to keep to the information that's in front of us, and under the planning application that we're considering.
I was just trying to establish what local people might consider a local shop size in comparison to.
I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to look at is a convenience store which has been confirmed as a maximum of net retail space of 280 metres.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think there are any further questions. Thank you very much. We now move on to points for clarification with the officers. Members. Councillor Harvey.
Could Alison remind us of the need for a study about when a study about retail impact is required and when it's not required, and how that relates to this particular proposition?
So, thank you, Councillor Harvey. Core Strategy Policy 23, CS23, requires a comprehensive retail impact assessment to be carried out for large-scale retail development in areas elsewhere than the commercial core. Large-scale retail development is defined as comparison retailing schemes exceeding 1,000 square metres gross and convenience retailing schemes exceeding 2,500 square metres gross. So this proposal, being 420, would not constitute large-scale retail development, and as such, no retail impact assessment was required in this instance. However, during the outline application in 2016, there was a retail impact assessment for the same location, which said, showed no impact. And also recently, I was the case officer for the Oldie scheme, which is 4 times larger in terms of floor area than this application. There was a retail impact assessment done on that, and that also was shown to have no impact on the town centre, so was approved.
I have a second question. I have two more questions, actually. There's an assertion that's been made that this application is non-compliant with SOU.3. Is that your interpretation?
No. This application is for a small shop. When you look on the government website, the definition of a small shop is one that measures up to and including 280 square metres. So as a small shop, it is able to trade with wider hours. So that's the 280 square metre net. That's the cut-off between a small shop and then larger shops. So this this application, if I could I just have my presentation back on? Is that all right? So this application, so this is policy SU03, south of Daventry Road. So if you just in this section, I don't know, can I make it any larger? Can you read that? Can I make it a bit bigger? Is that a bit bigger? So what is to be delivered? What is to be delivered? Approximately 500 dwellings, so there's 535, I think. So the third bullet point down, general store, approximately 280 square metres net, land and buildings. So where it's written here, land and buildings, that isn't written as what the total of the 280 square metres is to be. Land and buildings are a description of what the proposal has to include generally. For 280 square metres to be the total of all the building and the land would be nonsensical, because 280 square metres is approximately, for example, 14 metres by 20 metres. You couldn't possibly provide a shop, car parking, access, landscaping, retail floor area, parking bays within that. So it is true, it's slightly ambiguous the way it's written, but I think the intention of the policy is clear, and it's also backed up with the subsequent outline planning application, which was for a larger size, but the same net retail floor area.
My final question relates to traffic. The County Council's reply, highways, is no objection. Mention's been made during the evidence we've received of projected 803 traffic movements per day. Was the County Council Highways Department aware of that information when it came to its assessment? Yeah, absolutely. I can say that the Highways Department have absolutely raked over this application in the most minute detail over an extended period of time, and they've been back to the original outline as well and revisited all the data that was agreed then. They don't look at it as a total number of trips per day. They look at it in the worst case scenarios for the busiest hours, say between 8 and 9 in the morning, and then 7 and 8 in the evening. And they look at the impacts within that worst case scenario hourly period. So absolutely, yes, they have been aware of the data and they don't have a problem. They've agreed it.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Harding.
Thank you. Yes, I'm interested in the TRICS data as well. Do you have access to that?
I have some of it summarised in front of me. It depends what your question is.
So where are they suggesting that most of the traffic is generated from, and how many right turn movements into the site are we looking at? Because that's the most dangerous movement usually.
So the busiest times of today were between 8 and 9 in the morning, and then 5 and 6 in the evening. So the total, for the morning period, the total predicted from the TRICS database was 50 movements, 50 trips, and each vehicle going in and out is 2 trips. And then in the evening, it was 72 trips, so that's in and out. So 36 cars going on and off the site. So, and of that, there was quite a lot of discussion over the percentage of pass-by trips, and the assumption was made that 50% of the trips would be made from passing by vehicles, which I have to say, if they were passing by this, they would also be passing by on their way to Southam or on the way to Knapton. So it's not a new trip, it's a diverted trip, but the assumption was that 50% of the visits would be from pass-by traffic.
Is that helpful, Councillor Harding?
Thank you. Can I just ask another one?
Yes.
So that covers my point that probably the right turn lane is sufficient length to cope with all that safely.
Yes, from going back to the outline, so the outline, the road was designed, and the configuration of the road and the curves and the accesses was all designed to accommodate a convenience store on that location. So it is suitably wide, and you know it's been designed like that from the outset. The Spitfire Road, which is the main spine road, is the intention is for it to be adopted by county highways. So they've done a road safety audit, a stage 1 road safety audit already. So, and they've requested another condition for a stage 2 road safety audit, and there will also have to be a section 184 application with the county council for the agreement of the details of the reconfiguration of the road, because of obviously the footway and the old access and the grass verge will have to be reconfigured as part of that. So that's all secured by condition.
You want a supplementary?
And finally, in a different subject, there's been considerable discussion here about, and in the report, about taking trade away from the town. There's been considerable growth in Southam, so those town centre shops will have benefited from that growth. So is it actually a planning reason to refuse that we're taking trade away from the town centre, or is it just luck of the draw?
I don't think, I wouldn't recommend a refusal on those reasons, because I don't have any evidence to support that. Either from the previous retail studies or any of the retail impact assessment that's done with the recent Aldi or the previous outline application. As I said, the proposals fall within the definition of a small shop.
Thank you. Do we have any other further questions for officers? No? Can I suggest we move on to the debate? Who would like to open the debate? Can we have Councillor Harvey? Are you looking interested?
I don't want to speak. I don't want to steal other people's thunder. This is not a straightforward application in the sense that the local community opinion is divided on it, and there is significant evidence of unhappiness with the prospect. However, as we've always said, planning is not a popularity contest. It's a question of establishing the facts and applying the policy. And it strikes me that I can't see particularly a good planning reason not to follow the officer's recommendation. In summary, I can say that this proposal accords with the previous outline application in terms of what was specified in terms of size then. This is a For the purposes of planning, this is a small store under 200 or at 280 square metres. The provision for parking is not excessive because the net for the public is only 16 spaces once the staff, EV and disabled are taken into account. It seems to me to be in an ideal, some would not agree with this, but it seems to me to be in an ideal location in the sense that it is available to a discrete number of houses, 535, which currently don't have a facility at all. It will also take some passing trade, which is of convenience to those who are passing. It has the advantage that those people who would otherwise have driven rather than walk 25 minutes into the middle of Southam, if that's where they shop, they will have the opportunity to push a trolley or a pushchair or ride a bike or walk to a store which is convenient. And it seems to me that this is I have the impression from what is said, taken at face value, that this is a co-op store proposition which is community-centred, trying to be part of the community. And from my visit onto the Flyingfields site, there doesn't seem to be too much community infrastructure there at present. I know there's a hall, but it seems to me that this is... We frequently get the complaint that we build houses and we don't follow through with the infrastructure. This seems to me to be a piece of social infrastructure which is merited on planning grounds, and I'm happy therefore to propose that we accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. So we have a proposal. Would anybody else like to contribute in the debate? Yeah.
The thing that's kind of swinging this for me is we keep talking about these 803 movements, but if that's an in-out situation, that's 400 per hour, and the shop's going to be open 16 hours a day. It's less than one car every 2 minutes, you know, if you sort of break down simple mathematics and whatever else. So if that's the main objection, and as far as that goes, I think it's counterbalanced by the number of people, like Councillor Harvey just said, that will walk or cycle to this shop. And I think there'll be a net carbon gain with this shop as far as I can see, especially the fact that it's been built sustainably with solar panels. They're doing EV chargers and whatever else. So from my perspective, I'd happily second Councillor Harvey's proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. Councillor Passingham, you wanted to speak.
Well, yeah, I would oppose the application on the basis that the town council and the district councillor from there said basically that the neighbourhood plan says that we ought to encourage a vibrant and commercial centre, and the core strategy seeks to strengthen the role of Southam Town Centre. And to me, it's obvious that every town that has out-of-town supermarkets and shops, the footfall in the town centre goes down, independent shops go, businesses go, and the community as a whole suffers, and it becomes less vibrant. And what is most important is to preserve the community in Southam. So I think there are good planning reasons and there are good community reasons to refuse this, and that any future development should be in the commercial and business centre of Southam.
Thank you, Councillor Passingham. Are you proposing a refusal then? Can you confirm into the microphone?
Yes, I'm proposing a refusal.
Okay. We still have a number of councillors wanting to enter the debate. Councillor Littlewood, you said you wanted to.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the sentiment of the local group and the fact that the neighbourhood plan is trying to build and secure the centre. However, this is a relatively new development. It's on the outskirts of the existing town centre. 25 minutes walk to the shops. That means carrying shopping on on an inconvenient route back, one would suspect. The proposal for a convenience store was in the original outline and was accepted at that point. There may be some harm to the local centre, but I think that the local area directly served by this convenience store would benefit with the increase of 5 full-time equivalent jobs. We heard up to 12 people having full-time and part-time employment. I think, on balance, with the reduced carbon footprint that this would necessarily be able to achieve, that I would be in favour of supporting it being granted.
Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Harding.
Thank you. I think if we refuse this, we will be hard-pressed to defend it at appeal, because you've got direct access from the A425 for deliveries. They're not going through residential areas. You've got a large catchment area within walking distance, and any vehicle movements in and out of the site are safely accommodated by a right turn lane. I think it's better to grant permission with these conditions, because at least then we have some control over it. Because if an inspector overturns this appeal, we've got no control over it at all. So I will be supporting the recommendation. Councillor Ostrander, you would wish to speak?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting that the main shopping store in the High Street in Southam is a Heart of England cooperative. So the same organisation appeared to be happy to have a competing store, a possibly competing store so close. So you would think that if the new store were going to detract a lot of business from the High Street store, that they might not want to do this. So I think that is interesting in itself. I'm also inclined to think that 25-minute walk is probably a bit too long for most people to do their shopping. And so I think if this store were not there, people would get in their cars to go into Southam to shop. And so I'm inclined, despite the local people being dissatisfied with the size of this, I think it would be hard to argue against it for planning reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more from any more? Well, I'll just throw my hat into the ring. I think purely from a material planning perspective, because of the outline planning permission, and as part of the overall strategy for SOU 3, we would be very hard-pressed if we took a refusal on this one, because I do believe it would be overturned. It would be overturned at appeal, and there's no serious material reasons for objections. So on the basis we have a proposer, we have a seconder. Can I ask, therefore, in favour of granting, can I ask members to vote? Oh, in line with the officer's recommendation. I also wanted to highlight, I know the ward member made some recommendations for conditions on delivery times. However, I think the delivery times that have already been set out and agreed are reasonable and practical, particularly from a convenience store perspective, where there is a need to deliver early morning goods and newspapers in a timely manner. So on that basis, can I ask members, if we can just include, are members happy, are the proposer happy to include items raised on the update sheet with the condition on the opening hours, which is 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock, 7 days a week, in line with recommended delivery hours? This will be added to condition 18. Is the seconder happy with that? Fine. So with everything on the update sheet, members in favour, please raise.
That's 7, Chair.
Those against?
1, Chair.
I therefore resolve to grant planning permission for application 23/01576/FUL. And members, thank you for a constructive debate and questions and answers to our speakers. Thank you. We now move on to application reference 23/02105/FUL, holiday chalets at North Farm Fishery, Shuckburgh Road, Priors Marston, Southam, CV 474RY, and our presenting case officer is Stuart McIver. As and when you're ready, Stuart, when we get the presentation up.
Thank you, Chairman. So the application before members is a change of use of holiday chalets to a specialist independent school. Just to provide a bit of background, the application would not normally be heard at Planning Committee given that the Parish Council concur with officer's recommendation. However, given the level of public interest, the Head of Development, in consultation and agreement with the Chairman of Committee, have decided that this application should be heard by members. So the application site is Holiday Chalets at North Farm to the east of Shuckburgh Road. The application site is in open countryside, approximately 2 kilometres north of Priors Marston, and is denoted by the black dot on the map. So you can see the application site outlined in red with the access lane just off Shuckburgh Road. So here we have the existing site plan illustrating the 2 holiday chalets, which for the purposes of the application are referred to as Building A and Building B. So you have Building A here and Building B here. So here we have the proposed site plan. Again, you can see buildings A and B, which are proposed for the change of use. The site plan also shows Building C, which is proposed to be built and which can be constructed under an extant planning permission from 2010, and would provide a third building for use associated with the specialist independent school. So we go on to existing and proposed elevation plans for Building A. Existing and proposed elevation plans for Building B. And then we go on to the proposed elevations of Building C, which are consistent with the design which could be constructed under the extant permission from 2010. So the floor plans and internal layout are yet to be confirmed. So this is a Google Street View image taken from Shuckburgh Road, looking southeast towards the access lane of the application site. Hopefully you've got a map and a red arrow to the right hand side there, which indicates the direction of the photo. So this is actual site visit image. So this is taken from Shuckburgh Road, looking northeast, and illustrates the site access. Again, map and arrow to the right hand side of the image show the direction of the photo. So this is another site image taken from the access road, looking east, looking towards Building A, which you can just make out through the trees here. And this is an image taken from in front of building A, again looking east. So this is, again, another site visit image looking east at building B. And then finally, we have the land where building C is proposed to be built. And again, it can be constructed under the extant permission from 2010. So in summary, it's considered that the proposed change of use of the Hololets to a specialist independent school within the open countryside has not been fully justified, does not offer significant benefits to the local area, and is considered contrary to the overall development strategy of the district. Given the open countryside location, the proposed development excludes the opportunity for more sustainable modes of transport and relies on the use of a private car. As such, the proposed development does not support the transition to a low-carbon future as required by the NPPF. As such, the proposed development is considered contrary to the relevant provisions of the core strategy and national legislation and is therefore recommended for refusal. Please see the update sheet for updates. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Stuart. We just have one speaker who has registered for this application, Charlie Skopek. Good evening and welcome. You will therefore have 3 minutes. Would you find a 30-second notice helpful?
Just checking that that's working.
Yes, it is. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you ever so much for your time this evening. I'd like to address the office's concerns for refusal and share how we plan to mitigate these to benefit your communities and to share the incredible work at VLC. I'm Charlie Skopek and I'm incredibly proud to be the head teacher of VLC. We've existed for almost a decade, the core of our existence being to serve and care some of the most vulnerable children in Warwickshire. Our most recent quality assurance from the local authority stated that VLC is exemplary. Across 3 sites and 2 educational projects, we currently care up to 40 children and their families, almost half of whom live within the Stratford district. However, last year we received over 180 consultations for new places, evidencing the need to support our provision as the number of children and young people in Warwickshire with EHCPs has drastically increased by 51% in the last 5 years. 60% of our students have previously been school refusers, 80% previously excluded from school, but all of these are now positively engaging in education, and our overall attendance statistics is 89.9%. VLC's approach to education is not restricted just to academic attainment, but seeks to develop the whole child. Built on a foundation of love and compassion, our students go on to thrive and secure a successful future. Over the 3 years, all of our Year 11s have gone on to secure further education, one student even securing an apprenticeship to Rolls-Royce. Children who do not attend education are at greater risk of criminal activity, exploitation and social exclusion. The support we offer drastically reduces these risks and reduces strain on local care and justice services. Employability is a core component at VLC. Our students are active in the community. The presence of the school could lead to positive engagement with local businesses, in turn helping companies achieve their corporate social responsibility objectives and also support the local economy through the financial gain of SMEs. We seek to secure futures for staff and students. We've doubled our staff team within 2 years due to the demand for places. We've already provided a new job opportunity for a resident of Priors Marston who's just recently joined us as a maths teacher. We will be a positive contributor to your community with a genuine heart to serve and bless and meet the local demand and the needs of the community. We serve schools, churches, food banks, and whilst the school would be only open for 39 weeks of the year, our facilities can be used for the wider benefit of the community. Sustainable development is about planning for places, and VLC takes learning into the wild. Little Pineham offers us the perfect opportunity to encourage young people to care and love the local environment, increasing biodiversity. This is what sets us apart, and it's what our children need. It's exactly this type of location that is needed. We have a strong green agenda, committing to solar power, reducing traffic flow, and taxis are now electric, and this is something that we could seek to ensure in the future.
If you'd just like to try and wrap up, thank you.
VLC exists to transform and enrich the lives and futures of our students. Location should not be a barrier to seeing this transformation. Please consider that through this school, we could also enrich your communities.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation and for the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for recognising that.
Members, do we have any questions? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Chairman. You're very successful, aren't you? My reading of your the annual report you submit to Charity Commission tells me that you've doubled revenue in 2 years, and you're rated by Ofsted as good.
Correct.
Can you tell me what difference it would make to your abilities if you, I take it you're planning to move from Shottery and Covington to this site and maintaining Whitnash. So you are making an assumption here, which you need to test me out on, that you're moving from 2 urban sites to a rural site. Can you, in terms of what you do and the difference you make to your children, can you tell me how this site will impact on your abilities?
Absolutely. So many of our children come to us with a variety of different needs, and at the moment we currently fund over £80,000 on external provision for our students accessing Forest School and equine learning. We recognise that because we are very limited to church buildings in urban areas, there are needs there that we can't meet at the moment. Having a location would mean that we'd be able to bring these provisions in-house. We'd be able to reduce the traffic and the flow of traffic across Stratford to areas like Flourish at the Farm and Snitterfield, and ensure that provision is in-house. What would it mean to our students? I often refer to this project as giving our students a pocket of peace. And in their turbulent lives that many of our children have experienced and still continue to do so, having the ability to be able to access nature in its fullest, increasing their mental health and well-being, being able to really connect with the world, biodiversity, becoming active and well-informed citizens of the future that we need to protect in the world. So in answer to your first comment, yes, we are successful, and we're successful because what we do is really different. It's different to mainstream schools, and it's different to a lot of other alternative provisions and specialist schools out there. Everything that we do is built on relationship and genuinely loving our students, and I don't apologise for that at all, because we believe that without that, these students aren't going to be able to
Sorry
thrive.
to interrupt, we just need to keep to the
I could go on all night. Did that answer your question?
I think the tone answered the question. Can I ask a further question? Marans, who produced the planning statement that supports this application, makes reference to 3 or 4 appeal decisions, which seem to relate to cases elsewhere in the country, largely, that are in some ways very similar, i.e. they involve applications for sites in rural locations. Can you tell us any of the flavour of the background? Can you tell us how important this sort of a site is to your sort of work, given that there are other instances evidenced by the appeal decisions where they have been granted?
Thank you. So as I mentioned, the majority of our students haven't been able to access school as we typically know it. We need to do something different. We need to give them an opportunity to experience a different way of learning and re-engaging and loving with learning. I think a lot of the schools in rural settings really celebrate that connection with being rural and being within nature, offering things like Forest School, for example. That's become increasingly popular over the last couple of years, even to the point of primary schools actually bringing that in-house. My daughter loves Forest School at her school. Again, therapies around animals. For children with autism and ADHD and sensory issues, having opportunities to care for and connect to animals can be incredibly therapeutic for them in terms of processing trauma, in terms of processing their own mental health and well-being, regulation, co-regulation, as they deal with some really big emotions sometimes. We can't do that where we're at, and we're desperate to do so because we want to give them a flavour of what's different and what they're able to achieve.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from Councillor Paget?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It's really inspiring. I just had a couple of questions, actually. First one would be, if you were closing Cubbington and the Shottery sites, would that reduce the provision that you are, the number of places you're providing, or would coming to this site increase the places?
I'm really grateful for that in terms of clarification. As we work with the local authority and with the ever-changing demands and needs of the students, we have to respond very quickly to the demands that are before us. We have actually now secured Shottery for an additional year, directly funded by the local authority. We hire out these premises and they're not fit for purpose. So whilst Cubbington and Whitnash really do fulfil a need for the students where they're at the moment, if we were able to take our children who are on roll in terms of they'll be with us until for the longevity of their time, it means that we free up spaces for something called alternative provision. And this is where local schools buy in places for children at risk of exclusion or who have been excluded and are waiting to be placed at school. Ultimately, it means that we would be able to work even closely with the local authority in offering this, even more closely with the surrounding schools such as Trinity, Campion, North Lem, which is why that Whitnash site in the urbanised area is so important, because children can walk to us, they're around the corner. It makes those transitions so much easier. Yeah.
I think that probably answers the question.
Does it?
I'll come back to you, Councillor Harvey. I'm going to go across the other side of the floor. Councillor Pattingham.
Do most of your children get taxied to school, and do they travel from a wide area into Stratford and into Southam, or are they local to Stratford and local to Southam?
So, as I said, half of our children at the moment are within your Stratford district. The reality is, for the other half, actually, they have to travel a very long way. We've had students that actually have to come from the other side of Birmingham, simply because we're a school that will have them and that we will care for them, and they might have been excluded from other settings. The majority of our children do come to us in taxis, but actually we work alongside some really supportive parents and carers that also drop their children to us, and we do have had children as well that use bikes and walk and things like that. The majority of which as well, we've noticed recently that the taxis that are now being used are electric, and that seems to be quite
I think we need to relate
shift.
the transport to the proposed site.
The next question. At the two different sites at the moment, are they both got the same equipment, or do you need to transport pupils from one site to another?
Councillor Pattingham, we need to be referring to the site that we are discussing in front of us.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether the site that's in front of us will be more efficient if it's all in one place.
It absolutely will be more efficient.
So I was trying to establish that.
From a planning perspective, can we just keep it strictly to the planning that we have in front of us for this site?
Yes, it would be.
Councillor Harvey, I'll come back to you.
This is trying to tease something out about carbon emissions. It may sound a stupid question, but that's what I'm driving at.
There's no stupid questions.
How long... we could do a sophisticated calculation about how many car miles are travelled per day in order to ferry students to your facilities as they currently stand, and compare that. And I know there's a view that that's the wrong question. But my question is, how long do students stay with you typically? Because the longer that they stay, the more firm is the calculation you could do about where they come from, hence the travel miles. If they stay a very short period of time, that pattern will change. And therefore, I'm trying to get a sense of whether it's actually worthwhile, if we had figures today on car miles, whether that would be relevant in a year's time or a month's time or 2 weeks' time or what. So can you tell me something about the turnover, so to speak, of your
Yeah,
children?
absolutely. I'm afraid that I might not be able to give you the exact sort of data that you might require, but I can definitely give you a flavour. And the reality is there isn't a pattern, really. We've had children that come to us in year 7. We've had children that come to us in year 11. Every single child is different. When a child comes to us on alternative provision, the aim of alternative provision is always to try and get that child to transition back into mainstream school or into another alternative setting. We work alongside the local authority with the Ethical Inclusion Partnership, and we like to aim for an 8 to 12 week turnaround almost for those students in particular. But for the ones that are on roll, and therefore all of our children belong to us, but the long-term ones, that could start anywhere. It really can. It's very tricky to say. I did complete an exercise a few months back where we looked at time increase in cars for our students, because nobody wants to be sitting in a car for hours on end. Really, it's not enjoyable. And actually, only half of the students that were currently attending the Whitnash site, their journeys would only increase between sort of 5 and 10 minutes. So it wasn't a vast increase in terms of timing. Yeah, I couldn't comment on mileage. I apologise.
Thank you. Councillor Littlewood, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, you described the site as being perfect for your needs and the needs of the children that you're teaching and bringing into adulthood, put them on the right path. We all can understand green fields are very important. It's a fairly isolated site, away from the main centre. What sort of demand, therefore, would you expect to put on the local amenities?
I think it's the opposite. As we are a community at VLC, a lot of our children take part in work experience opportunities with local amenities and local businesses. As I said in my speech, we are active in our community. We have children that choose to go litter picking and taking part in church services, for example, at Remembrance Sunday, putting together poems. We have children who have volunteered and completed work experience.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm not quite sure where this is going. Can we just keep it specifically to the site and what is in front of us?
I think the question is how are we going to benefit your community, potentially economically, and wider afield?
My question was actually, what demands on the local resources would you make? And from what you've said, I think you're saying you won't make demands, you'll be self-contained.
No, correct.
There may be deliveries, of course, along the way. And within the regard to this application, one of the objections was the demand on local services. And I think that was adequately answered. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? I would just like to ask a couple of points. Obviously, you border on with Northamptonshire. Priors Marston is. Yeah. So I was interested to know what sort of, from your catchment, how that would impact. Obviously, your current the pupils at the current school would certainly have to travel quite a considerable distance from Whitnash to Priors Marston, and do they benefit from the home to school transport or in minibuses, or are they done on an individual parental basis in terms of traffic movements to Priors Marston?
I might have to ask you to repeat that second question because I'm going on the first one first. Go
with the first one.
In terms of the response that I made, our children are dotted around all over the place. So in terms of their own travel time, for the majority of our students, that travel time or distance actually wouldn't increase that much. We have children over in Rugby, for example, and other locations. So that wouldn't be an issue. In response to the Northamptonshire border, we are seeing, because of the need of places, requests and consultations come from neighbouring local authorities such as Leicestershire and Oxfordshire. I haven't received any from Northamptonshire yet, but I would absolutely love to.
That's fine. I also wanted to know whether you had been able to consider any other sites that were perhaps offered you a rural environment but were closer to a town centre.
Well, I'll be honest, I check Rightmove almost daily. And actually, we haven't been able to find a site that meets these requirements. Towards the back of the land, there is an incredibly beautiful lake with the opportunity for our students to really immerse themselves in science and biology and just looking at how creation exists. Very quickly, no.
No, that's fine. Obviously, what we have to, and we appreciate your passion for as the head, but obviously this evening we have to look at it purely from a planning perspective. If there are no further questions, thank you. Thank you for your time. Now I wish to move to questions to the officer. Clarification. Any clarification? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you. Can I read one brief section of the NPPF, which I know is relevant? It reads, "It's important that a sufficient choice of school places is available to meet the needs of existing and new communities. Local planning authorities should take a proactive, positive and collaborative approach to meeting this requirement and to development that will widen choice in education. They should, A, give great weight to the need to create, expand or alter schools through the preparation of plans and decisions on applications." My question to the officer is there anything in planning terms greater than great weight? Does great weight outweigh significant weight?
I think probably different planners have different scales. I think great is down to your interpretation. Great is clearly big, and you could say it's very similar to significant.
The only thing greater than great seems to me to be greater.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Do we have any other questions that members wish to pose? Councillor Holmes.
Thank you, Chair. One of the reasons for refusal is that the application...
Councillor Holmes, can you just pull your mic down, please?
Apologies, sorry. One of the reasons for suggested refusal is that this application is against policy CS1. In the core strategy, there doesn't seem to be much talk of provision for education and schools. And within policy CS1, it says, where there are no policies in the core strategy that are relevant to the application, the council will grant permission unless material considerations indicate otherwise, taking into account whether any adverse impacts on granting permission would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against policies in the NPPF. I wonder whether we as a committee can take the view that this application is not covered by the core strategy. Thank you.
So the core strategy doesn't have specific policy for education facilities or does not specifically refer to educational facilities. However, it is defined as a community facility, which is covered by CS25, which is fully addressed within the officer's report.
So if I can just add to that. So yeah, so just to confirm, officer's view is that there are relevant policies to the determination of the application. So that is essentially the tilted balance in the MPPF that you referred to, which is set out in CS1. So we don't consider that's engaged. We've looked at CS25 and AS10 in terms of the penultimate paragraph as detailed in the report.
Any other further queries from councillors? No? Shall we move to the debate? Councillor Holmes.
So in the officer's report on page 69, paragraph 3, highlights 3 main points where they accept there is a need for this proposed specialist education school, that this will provide some economic and social benefits to the area, but because it's sited in a location that's not readily accessible for transport modes other than private car, this outweighs those 2 positives. I personally believe that those 2 positives massively outweigh that negative, and that we as a committee should be looking to approve this application, and if needed, I'm happy to make a proposal for that.
Is that a proposal or not?
Yes.
A proposal to grant?
To grant the application against officer's recommendations.
Councillor Harvey.
I'd like to second that. On the grounds that the 2 reasons the officer has identified that the development in the open countryside is not fully justified. I think what we've heard says this is totally justified. The second reason is that the proposal doesn't support the transition to a low carbon future. Well, my first criticism would be I haven't seen any evidence. To me, that's just an assertion. And I think we have to make a decision based upon the social, economic and the environmental issues. I quoted paragraph 99 of the NPPF talking about great weight. I'd like to also briefly mention paragraph 89, which says planning policies and decisions. This is the NPPF. Planning policies and decisions should recognise that sites to meet local business and community needs in rural areas may have to be found adjacent to or beyond existing settlements and in locations that are not well served by public transport. This seems to me to be a proposal which meets that test 4 square. There's case decisions showing that this sort of decision would not be out of line with previous planning appeal decisions. I make this proposition not on the basis of sentiment or enthusiasm, but I think there is the social the social benefits of this proposal and the uniqueness of the site. You can't have degrees of uniqueness. This site appears to be unique, certainly in this neck of the woods. I don't have any hesitation in seconding the proposal that we grant this application.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Holmes, can I come back to you? Are you happy to agree to the rationale behind supporting to grant this application based on Councillor Harvey's summation?
Yeah, absolutely. I echo every word of Councillor Harvey's summation there.
I'm sure he'll be delighted to hear that. Other councillors who wish to come in on to the debate? Councillor Fleming.
You don't want to wait.
Apparently Councillor Stranger was before you. I apologise, Councillor Stranger. Ladies first.
Thank you. It seems to me that the main issue about the lack of sustainability is to do with the transport mode. And I think that it's been reasonably established and written in this report that most of the students that, or many at least, many, would come by taxi. And I think that would be irrespective of the location. So I think that even if this were in a centre, I think we would still be needing taxis. So I'm not sure really that being in a location with public transport would really make a great deal of difference on that particular point.
Councillor Fleming.
Yeah, I think we heard a very eloquent and persuasive argument from the lady earlier on, and in reality, the whole idea of getting children back into mainstream schools that have problems is an incredible feat if they can do that. Agree with what Councillor Harvey's already said and Councillor Holmes as far as regulations and what they mean. I think it's important that we're aware of these policies and adhere to them as much as we can. But I think in this particular case, I would certainly wholeheartedly agree with my two colleagues, and I'll support the application to grant.
Councillor Harding.
Thank you. One of the problems with going against an officer's recommendations is that you haven't considered what you might like to impose as a condition if you grant it. I think we should be looking at what palliative measures we could be undertaking. If we grant this, we need to be looking at palliative measures to improve sustainability. So maybe, for example, we should be looking at a condition that says there should be so many EV charging points for staff, not taxis. The staff who probably also have to travel long distances to get to this place. Off the top of your head, do you have any idea of what you would suggest to make this more sustainable?
As far as conditions concerned, that is something that we would ask the officers. If we move to grant, we would certainly look at the conditions and leave it for the officers to delegate.
Yeah, I think we may be able to condition a percentage of EVCPs at the site if members were minded to grant.
I'm just double checking the standards as set out in the development requirements SPD. I'm pretty sure that says that commercial sites should provide 10% electric vehicle charging points. So that could be something. Mind, are the 16 car parking spaces provided? It is 10%. Stuart, it's the 16 car parking spaces provided. Just thinking how many that actually equates to. So, 16.
Yeah, sorry, 16.
Sorry. Yeah, so it would be 2 EVCP. So we could certainly add that as a condition. The other thing I would say is Stuart's actually prepared a list of conditions in case members were minded to grant. So that's available when ready.
I'll come back to that moment. Councillor Passingham.
Unfortunately, the children do have to be bussed a long way, wherever they're from and wherever the site is. So we can't get around that, and the electric taxis seem to be being used as much as possible, so that's good. But I think an additional point is that this is out in the countryside. There's a lake nearby. There's plenty of the therapy that the children will benefit from in a location like this, especially these children with difficulties, will be a great benefit. So I think there's justification for it being out in the countryside where a lot of normal development wouldn't be allowed.
Councillor Littlewood. Councillor Pasham.
Thank you. That's okay. Just wondering about the access. It seems like it's going to be on a single track road. Obviously, we're talking about a lot of car journeys, potentially, children being dropped off and taxis coming back out and more cars coming back in. Excuse me. I know you sort of said that you're preparing a list of conditions, but could there be some kind of condition to improve the condition of the road to make it more roadworthy for the taxis to come in and out safely?
Can I make an observation?
Yes.
Some information. I don't think this is a single track road. The access track may well be single track, but the road is quite
Shockborough Road is a two-way.
Two-way, and I know that from local information that a school bus runs up and down there. It's not a public bus; it's a school bus runs up and down every day during term time. So the road, Shockborough Road, is fine. Thank you.
Councillor Littlewood, you wanted to add?
Yes, I think what we've got to look at here is the harm to the local environment, sustainability, etc., is far outweighed by the benefit to society as a whole that this facility will achieve. And I think that is material in this decision.
Thank you. And what I would just like to say, I'd like to say that the Planning Committee are a listening committee. And I think the presentation that we've heard this evening, together with some sound planning reasons, what we have actually, it's a change of use from holiday lets. There are already buildings there. This is not a new build situation, and therefore I think it is a unique situation, albeit in the countryside where AS10 would normally, if it had been a new build, we wouldn't be having the discussions that we're having. But what we're actually looking at is a change of use from existing buildings plus one other. And I would just like to thank you for the time and effort that you've put in to come and talk to us. And I will be supporting to grant this. And I hope you go away thinking, Stratford District Council Planning Committee, listen to its community, listen to people. And I'm therefore quite happy that we need to go through the reasons for granting and also the conditions.
Yeah, so I'll cover off reasons first. I think the general message I've got is essentially that the benefits outweigh the harm that's been identified. I think that the thing that officers obviously considered in assessing the principle was the penultimate paragraph of AS10. Officers didn't consider that all tests had been met, i.e. that the site or the development hadn't been fully justified, didn't offer significant benefits to the local area and wasn't contrary to the overall development strategy. The message I'm getting from members' debate is that you're fully content that that has been complied with, so the development is essentially supported via the penultimate paragraph of AS10. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. And there... Right, Stuart.
Yes, and the list of conditions would be number 1, time limits, number 2, in accordance with approved plans, number 3, materials in accordance with approved plans, number 4, external lighting details to be submitted and approved, number 5, development not occupied until visibility displays have been provided in accordance with an approved plan, 6, travel plan to be submitted and approved, 7, development not occupied until parking details have been provided, 8, provision of adequate water supplies and fire hydrants necessary for firefighting purposes. Number 9, the building shall only be used for education purposes. Number 10, provision of water butts. Number 11, broadband facilities. Number 12, climate change checklist. And then number 13, as discussed earlier, 10% EVCPs at the site.
Thank you for that comprehensive list, Stuart. So therefore, the committee is proposing, we've got a proposer, a seconder, and to grant for all the reasons given, and obviously subject to the conditions, subject to agreeable. Committee can... Right, and we need to delegate the wording to the officers in terms of the conditions and the reasons for granting. Can I have your views, please, to grant?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Thank you, committee. And thank you all for coming along this evening. Just leave a few minutes for the public to leave. Right, committee, we now move on to our final application this evening. Application reference 23/02917/FUL 19 Butlers Close, Long Compton, Shipston-on-Stour, CV 36 5JY, and our presenting officer is Sian Mayer.
Thank you, Chair. Slide 1 shows the application site, which is identified by the black dot. The site is located in the village of Long Compton. The site boundary is outlined in red on the plan. The site comprises of a mid-terrace two-storey dwelling. It is located in the Cotswolds National Landscape, formerly the Cotswolds AONB. The application site is outside of the conservation area, which is shown on the plan by the purple line running through the plan here. This slide shows the existing and proposed elevations for the planning application. Permission is sought to demolish the existing conservatory to the rear of the property and the construction of a single-storey ground floor extension and related internal works that can be seen on this side. This slide shows a picture of the rear of the property as existing and shows the conservatory as it currently stands. Again, this photo shows the rear of the application site and the conservatory as it currently stands. This photo shows it's from the rear of the application site to the garden, looking back on the property and just showing it from further afield in line with the other properties that it's in the middle of. And that's the end. Chair, the recommendation is to approve the application subject to conditions as detailed within the committee report.
Thank you very much, Sian. I'd like now to invite Councillor Simon Byng from Long Compton Parish Council for his presentation of 3 minutes. Good evening, Councillor Byng, and thank you for your patience.
It's fine, thank you.
Would you like a 30-second reminder before the end?
That'd be useful, thanks. Yeah, okay, great.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening. Firstly, can I just state that this application should have already been granted in the Parish Council's opinion. The Parish Council first considered this application at their meeting in November 23, and the minute note from that agenda states, objection, the Parish Council have concerns, reservations over the size of the roof light and lack of light mitigation. However, the PC would be happy to withdraw this if these concerns were addressed. These concerns were, we believe, raised with the applicant by the planner, and the applicant discussed this with myself in December. I explained the Parish Council position with regards to the Neighbourhood Development Plan and protecting Policy E3 dark skies, specifically only supporting proposals that would not have the potential to jeopardise the village's dark skies site. The applicant inquired what would be needed to mitigate this, and it was explained that material measures to prevent unnecessary light spillage such as blinds and roof light integrated blinds would satisfy this. The applicant, being a lifelong village resident and appreciative of the effects of light pollution in the village, agreed that this was sensible and wrote to the planner stating, with reference to our application for 19 Butlers Close and the subsequent objection raised by the Parish Council, we can confirm that a light mitigating blind system will be used to prevent any internal light from being emitted during the darkened hours of the day and night. The Parish Council agreed at its January meeting following this correspondence that mitigating measures had been put in place, so the Parish Council were happy to remove their objections subject to the planner conditioning light mitigation that the applicant has agreed to. We're therefore here because Stratford planners are not willing to uphold the made Neighbourhood Development Plan and condition light mitigation due to the small-scale nature of the application and its perceived minimal harm to its surroundings and the village. The planner has made it clear to the applicant on several occasions she cannot grant permission with conditions relating to their Neighbourhood Development Policy E3. I put it to you that this application could have been approved under delegated powers back in January without this waste of time, money and inconvenience to the applicant and all of us here. Indeed, at this time, the local planning authority saw fit to grant retrospective planning to 2 properties where works have been completed, stating it is not a material planning consideration that no planning was applied for, and therefore it would be granted under delegated powers. This with the Head of Development, Deputy Chief Executive and Chief Executive of this council having prior knowledge of works taking place prior to the application being placed and doing nothing to rectify it. I urge you to grant this planning permission with the condition for light mitigation agreed and supported by the applicant and the Parish Council. You can allow this applicant to build their extension and support the neighbourhood development plan with its full weight in planning, knowing that the 6 tested plannings will be met, in that it is necessary to protect the dark skies in the neighbourhood development plan. It is relevant as it affects the neighbourhood development plan and therefore Stratford's own core strategy. It is relevant to the development permitted, it is enforceable, it is precise as it relates to blind systems agreed by the applicant, and it is reasonable in all other aspects, including that we should expect the local planning authority to uphold our neighbourhood development plan and that developments, no matter what their size, should comply with all planning policy.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have any questions from members? No? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We don't have any further speakers, so we move straight to officers' points for clarification. Does anyone have any points they wish to clarify?
Can I just have I cottoned on? Are we here trying to are we being propositioned that the officers take the point of view that the light emitted from this roof skylight will not infringe the dark sky policies? On the other hand, the Parish Council think that it will. Is it as simple as that?
Yes. And I would add something as well. I would say that obviously officers have had regard to the fact that it's replacing an existing conservatory. So officers' view is that the current situation in terms of light emission to the dark skies is actually worse than what's being proposed here.
Do we have any other further questions from councillors? If not, I'm very happy to move swiftly on to the debate. Councillor Littlewood.
From what I've heard, we're removing a glass roof conservatory and we're putting up a brick building with reduced glass area, which will reduce the light, as the officer has just confirmed. And I see no reason not to support the recommendation to grant, and I'm happy to make that a proposal.
Do we have any other councillors wishing to speak on this? Councillor Holmes.
Nothing then other to second Councillor Littlewood's proposal.
Okay, councillors, we have a recommendation for proposal and we have a recommended second. Just checking in terms of, I think we just, so the proposal and second is to grant in line with the officer's recommendation. Committee, please can I have your votes in respect to that?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Planning Committee therefore resolves to grant planning permission in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Committee. And that now concludes the public aspect of this evening's meeting. And we now move on to urgent business.
No urgent business, Chair.
No urgent business, but I would like